Welcome back. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. House Democrats are not committing to impeachment proceedings, but short of that, they are doing everything they can to keep the president and Robert Mueller's report in public eye this week. That includes 2 congressional hearings and a full House vote on whether to hold Attorney General William Barr and former White House counsel Don McGahn in civil contempt. First up, a hearing in the Judiciary Committee that will feature testimony from John Dean, President Nixon's White House counsel, who testified against his former boss during the Watergate hearings back in 1973. Joyce Vance is a former U.S. attorney and professor at the University of Alabama Law School, and she will also be testifying in this afternoon's hearing. Also joining the conversation, Matt Miller, former chief spokesperson for the Justice Department. Joyce, obviously, we should note you are an MSNBC contributor, but you are testifying on your own today as a former U.S. attorney with a whole lot of expertise. What can you tell us about your testimony and why you think this hearing is going to be so valuable?
It's an interesting hearing, Stephanie, because today when we testify, and I'll be there with my former colleague Barb McQuade, who was the U.S. Attorney in Detroit, Michigan, when I was the U.S. Attorney in Alabama. And we're there not because we have personal political views, but we're there to lend our expertise as prosecutors and talk with the committee about how prosecutors evaluate evidence in an investigation and how they compare that and analyze it in light of the legal standards, the elements you have to prove in order to establish a crime, and how we would make charging decisions given the body of evidence that the Mueller report has compiled.
Matt, John Dean is going to testify today. Yes, he is an expert on what happened to Richard Nixon 40 years ago. But what does he bring to the table? Because many people are saying it's odd, he has nothing to do with this. And Republicans, of course, are saying this is just political theater, ignore it.
You know, it's a fair question. I don't know if you're a fan of alt country music and know that old Charlie Robinson song, "You're not the best, but you're the best that I can do." But I think that's a little bit how I think of this hearing today, which is not a slight against Joyce. Obviously, she's the best in my book, and this hearing is important. But look, the committee wanted to have a bunch of other witnesses by now. They wanted to have Bob Mueller before the committee. They wanted to have Don McGahn before the committee, but they've been unable to get that done. So I think what you see now is a 2-track strategy. So while they go to court to try to compel testimony from witnesses like Don McGahn, they're going to bring other witnesses like Joyce and John Dean and Barb McQuade who can come in and speak to what the Mueller report shows, which is pretty clear evidence that the president committed obstruction of justice in a number of occasions. Most Americans don't know that. I think the point of today's hearing is to bring experts in to explain that while the committee separately goes to court to try to get the witnesses from the Mueller report compelled to appear.
Then to that point, Joyce, these hearings are not fact-finding missions. John Dean, Barbara, and yourself were not involved in this administration. It seems more that they're simply trying to shine a spotlight and explain more to the American people, most of whom have not read the report.
I think that's right, Stephanie. This is table setting. This is helping people understand the context in which the events that the Mueller report examined occurred. And Matt makes an important point, and I'll acknowledge being the best that they can do, because the real shame here is that folks who should have complied with subpoenas to appear in front of this committee, because Congress has an Article I oversight function to comply with, the fact that those subpoenas have been essentially ignored is shameful. It's a violation of the norms. I know people get tired of hearing us talk about norms being violated, but these are so essential to the functioning of our government. Hopefully the American people will begin to see that.
But here's the issue. It's setting a table for those who are already at the table, who believe that there was obstruction of justice, who are going to be watching this saying, hell yes. But does it move the needle in any way? Matt, tomorrow you've got this House vote. Does the vote make any difference? Because even if they agree to hold Barr and McGahn in contempt, here's what gets me. Does any of it matter? When is it going to happen? In my little mind, I would think subpoenas and being held in contempt would actually cost you something.
Well, look, I think you're seeing the committee. There are always kind of 2 things in congressional oversight. One is try to move the needle on public opinion, and I don't know that a contempt vote does that. And I think the House may actually not hold the 2 of them in contempt. But the other thing that's going to happen on the floor tomorrow is a very separate, second piece of it, which is authorize the committees to go to court. So while moving, that may in itself not move the needle on public opinion, it gives the committees the ability to go to court and try to enforce these subpoenas. I think you've seen, as Joyce said, a bunch of witnesses just kind of flagrantly thumb their nose at the committee's lawful exercise of their constitutional authority. And so what Congress is being forced to do, what the House is being forced to do, is go to court. And what that vote in the House will do tomorrow is give the committees a chance to be able to do that more quickly. So it gives not just the Judiciary Committee, but Intel and banking and all the others who are seeing witnesses from inside out and outside the administration just completely stonewall the chance to try to break down that wall.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.